A very good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I am Chamberlain Uso.
Good morning from Abuja. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
Here in Lagos, I'm Ayo Makinde. Good morning and welcome.
Indeed, good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily on Channels Television. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
But you know, we wonder, what sort of morning will it be for several people in different parts of this country? And that's because the floods in different parts of the country, the Nasarawa, Kogi, parts of Benue, several areas now, flood is wreaking havoc in those other areas. And of course, it's got its attendant effect such that in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, the metropolis, you see, wow, so very scary queues, fuel queues, I should tell you, that it is as a result of what's going on there, because the fuel suppliers have said, look, the tankers laden with fuel, which was supposed to supply the capital and different parts of the country, is stuck in Rotten Cafe area, as in Lokoja, as a result of that. And as such, they cannot go through, they cannot even move an inch. And then the alternative roads, according to them, which they say they could apply, it's also laden with potholes. It's bad and they can't use it, even though the FRC is diverting traffic as much as they can. They put up that notice a while ago. But as we speak, it is not anything to write home about. And as a matter of fact, unfortunately, too, lives have been lost. So, yes, they did speak, asking the Ministry of Works, several other agencies. Of course, I know different governors have been visiting Kogi, Nasarawa, just to at least commiserate and see what can be done. But look, something needs to be done as soon as possible, as quick as possible, because if we're only waiting for the floods to abate before we move, that speaks a lot about how we respond to these kind of emergencies, because now that it's happened now, it means you never know. It just may happen again.
Hasn't it happened before? You know, one of the things I do not like about this sort of conversation is the fact that, you know, when we greet good morning, we're still beaming with smiles, trying to, you know, warmly welcome our viewers to the program, and then it just goes from there to such a very sad story. Look at it. This is Cotton Cafe. I think this is in Kogi State. You also have the situation. This is what currently motorists are going through in Kogi State. You can see that that portion of the road there is overflooded. It looks like the waters are even receding now, and that's why we can even see this, you know, this passage. But the truth of the matter, Chamberlain, is that we were warned. Every year you find the hydrological agency of government telling us just how much rainfall is expected. The meteorological agency as well also gives its own warning. Look at houses completely submerged. The question is it that we've just learned to take this as routine? You know, oh yes, the government agency, that's their job. They should keep talking. What do we do with that information is the question. People have said, oh, when last did we dredge our rivers? That there have been questions as to when last the River Niger or the River Benue were dredged. Instead, what we have had is controversy. Don't forget that there's been a controversial water resources bill, which has been strongly rejected by members of the House of Representatives, especially from the southern part of the country. But that's basically where the controversy has ended. We haven't taken a critical look at our waterways to say, now that the Hydrological Agency is issuing its warning and NIMET is issuing its warning as well, what can we do to mitigate it? Well, we haven't taken any precautions. This has now happened. Now that it has happened, or in the event of a flood, what are the preparations that we will put in place? I mean, this fuel scarcity now that has hit Abuja and its environs, you know, has been in the works since. We saw the signs since last week. And we would have thought that by now, there would have been agencies of government that would be disturbed enough. On Friday, I was asking, and when I finished asking, I asked myself, is it part of their jobs? But I asked because I have seen situations, in other countries where the country seems overwhelmed. There is an emergency situation. And then you now find that, the security agencies have to, put together like a team. It could be from the military, police, a mix usually, to form an emergency team to be able to sort out situations like this so they do not degenerate. On my way to work this morning along the airport road, you should see the different filling stations besieged by super lengthy queues. At one of the NNPC filling stations, the queue was as long, generally, I'm not exaggerating, was over a kilometer long. Wow. And this is on a day that, the federal government has earmarked for people to celebrate Eid Malud. What sort of celebration are they having if they're going to spend virtually the whole day at a filling station waiting for fuel? A situation that we could have done something to see if we can mitigate. When there are emergencies like this, apart from the Emergency Management Agency, which, whose job it is to distribute buckets and mattresses, what other agency of government, sees to it that in terms of logistics, in terms of things that need to be done to see how, those who are, stuck in traffic or those who are stuck somewhere, whose job is it to ensure that, they are attended to ensure that whatever gridlock, as in some places there were utter confusion in a place like Kogi, where cars were trying to pass, and, in some places there were utter confusion. Do we have such an agency to be able to see this, to be able to help sort out those kinds of situations? We don't need an agency before they say I'm advocating for another one. I think that
even the ones out there that are supposed to respond, they thought that
exactly.
these are what they should do.
How quickly do they respond?
We don't see that.
That's a big question for me. That's a big question for me. Maybe Minister for Special Duties should be assigned that sort of job, and to see how he or she, I don't even know if I think it's a he that is there now. Yeah, George Akume.
Because the office has been
George
silent.
Akume is the one who is there now as Minister of Special Duties. We would have thought that by now we would have been hearing from him.
Yep.
Well, indeed, Maokwe, we do empathize with Abuja residents, you guys, following this fuel scarcity. And, this thing creeps. We hope that it doesn't begin to creep down south, and that is nipped in the bud as soon as possible so that you can, begin to enjoy ease once again in getting to buy that all-essential product. But you talked about the dredging of the rivers moments ago, and how it hasn't been done in a while. And if that is important to check this flooding, perhaps, the relevant government agencies or ministries should look into that, because the flooding is beginning to have myriad of consequences, not just in the displacement of people, but also, having an impact on agricultural produce. The report from the weekend in Nasarawa, 4,000 hectares of farmland has been affected, and perhaps that product has been destroyed, produce rather, rice. 4,000 hectares is quite a number, and the manufacturer or the producer of that product is talking about the destruction of infrastructure to the tune of $18 million, dikes, canal, and so many others. And that could have an impact on the price of rice. In 3 months, we've bought rice for between 25,000 naira to 35,000 naira for a bag. Who knows how much Nigerians will purchase a bag of rice for by December? And at that time, there really is a rush for that produce, because it'd be given as gifts in many organizations and corporations. That's it leaves a sour taste in the mouth. And perhaps we should also, at this time, commiserate with the people of Anambra East, to be precise. There's another impact of flooding that is experienced there from over the weekend. People who were trying to move to safer locations following displacement as a result of flooding, their boat happened to capsize, and only about 9 persons had been saved, at the time of the capsizing of the boat, and they haven't been able to save many more. And there is a very real fear that many lives may have been, may have been lost. There were 85 people in that boat. It's a really, really sad one. And we recorded another boat mishap sometime last week. Perhaps this is also the time for community leaders to take charge in terms of, educating, training residents on the use of life jackets, particularly those who live along the floodplain. That can't be said enough. Once again, we commiserate with the people of Anambra. Ayo.
One thing that I know is, could it have been prevented? The answer is yes. Just on Saturday, we were having a conversation with the DG of the Nigeria Hydrological Agency. And he was telling us that, look, these warnings came out early enough, significantly. He said on Saturday when we were having a conversation with him, and I quote, "If our predictions were heeded by relevant subnationals, we would not have been where we are today." Now, as Malkwe said, as you mentioned earlier, it is not the first time we're hearing this. We knew this was going to happen. The question is, what could we have done? One of the things that I hear governments at various levels say is people should relocate from their ancestral homes, from these flood-prone areas. The question I ask is, where to? Is it possible to stop this flooding? Yes, absolutely. There was a time in this country that the Bar Beach area was always flooded with water. I don't remember the last time, anytime there was when the water was raised, I don't remember the last time that happened in this country. There was a time, the neighborhood of our organization here was almost always flooded on an annual basis. I don't remember the last time I heard that one happen at the level at which it used to happen before. So yes, the subnationals can do something about this thing. Will we do something? That's the question that we should be asking now. What should we do going forward? Again, let me quote the engineer Clement who says, "I'm believing that following this year's flood disaster across the land, the consciousness of relevant actors, especially subnationals, will be awakened to do the needful once they receive all these advisories." That is a hope expressed from the Nigeria Meteorological Agency, Nigeria Hydrological Agency, and the rest of them. Let's hope this time around that they will be listened to, election year or not. Guys.
All right, then. Yeah, so let's go ahead and delve right into the dailies, and we're starting with leadership today because that links directly to what we've just highlighted in this opening. And if you take a look at that paper, it says, "After hell, it's Lokoja." Point blank. That's the way they see that, because they are letting people know that they deploy drones in telling the story of the misery of many dead, displaced, and businesses ruined by floods in Nigeria's north-central region. And speaking about it happening before, I got a reminder that I think about, it says 10 years ago, exactly 10 years ago, in same capacity, a friend reminds me that they were going for their sister's wedding and they had to cross by boat to come to Southwest, and it was 2012. And so if at that time, what did we do about that? How did we approach it? Did we just wait for it to subside? And clearly, it does appear as though we didn't take it as seriously.
Yeah, we didn't.
As we should. Because even if we call those agencies to come in and do some things now, it will, chances are, if not 70% of the time, I stand corrected, it may just be a knee-jerk response. You may not see that kind of coordination among those agencies in terms of how to respond to these kind of matters. Because if you don't have that capacity at the federal level, what then do we expect of the states?
In 2012, two-thirds of the country was affected. Yes, two-thirds of the country was affected.
The government at that time said they gave some money.
Yes, they did. There was an emergency fund given, and part of the excuse was that it was inevitable because Cameroon, released the Lagdo Dam. Their dam was overflooded, and they had to, release some water into the rivers, I think, especially the Benue, and we couldn't handle the overflow of that. But since that time, there'll be questions as to what emergency plans we have put in place should that sort of situation ever arise again.
And I remember the fight that went on in some states when some people said, look, we were affected. The funds that were given to them to do things, this government, state governments didn't give to them. And so the agencies that were set up in those states to mitigate all those damage, it just didn't happen. So who knows if it will just repeat itself now. That's leadership, by the way.
10 years after, we're still talking about things like, 10 years after, we have not shown that we have learned any lesson, any lesson whatsoever. Affordable housing is what the Abuja Inquirer is focusing on. Yes, it focuses on stories right here in the Federal Capital Territory. And the lead story says, affordable housing, FCTA fails to deliver. Hope of 4,104 housing units by October dashed. Yes, we're in October right now. You might want to read details of the story on page 3 of the paper. No sites for 896 other units in area councils. Delay is not failure. That's according to the FCTA. So perhaps there's still hope that maybe they will still be able to deliver affordable housing. We do know that here in the FCTA, in the FCT, if you're able to get rent out of, part of your bills. That's everywhere,
huge
though.
let off.
But it's even bigger right here in the Federal Capital Territory. Ask those who are currently paying house rent and those who are about to start paying. Well, you also have on top of the nameplate a matter which is not a laughing matter: sexual assault video. FCT command launch probe against DSP. A very disturbing story that a deputy superintendent of police could be involved in allegations of sexual assault and sexual misconduct. Is a page 3 read for you. I also have an interview granted by a former EFCC chairman. Corruption fought me out of office. That's from Magu. It's on page 11 of the paper. Let's leave it there for the Abuja Inquirer.
Flip to this Nigeria newspaper, and that one is talking about, part of what we spoke about earlier. Anambra boat tragedy, 16 dead bodies recovered, schools still trapped. Bukola, you referenced this earlier in the conversation. And look at the riders. Rescue continues as Buhari expresses grief over accidents. It's a disaster of monumental proportions, says Ngige. Find that story on page 4 of the paper this morning. A lot of it is also politics and the rest of them, and so many other things you'll find on the front page of the paper for your picking. But look at the bottom strip, that line, that green line: oil theft. 42 new tapping points uncovered in Delta Bayelsa, says Tompolo. The story is on page 5.
I take you through Daily Trust newspaper this morning as it chooses to focus on something entirely different where its big story is concerned. And the Daily Trust focuses on aviation, how 62 airlines went moribund since 1960. The writers say multiple charges, harsh business environment responsible, that's ascribed to operators, need for funding. And you see what appears to be a pictorial providing more insight. 62 defunct airlines since independence, and then total number of running airlines in Nigeria, scheduled airlines. Well, it says a bit more about this exclusive investigation, and it depicts, the all-time low in Nigeria's aviation environment. It's a page 4 read, and of course you find that one interesting. Let's.
You don't mind me butting in.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it speaks to a lot. The 62 airlines went moribund. That's how many jobs gone. And then, so with the issues that we're having in aviation now, how many jobs, how many aviation companies are on the line, and how many jobs are on the line?
Well, it's since independence, so that's a number of decades.
Yes, I'm contextualizing it's since independence means over the years, up
yes.
until now. So I'm contextualizing how many more are on the line, given the precarious situation that the aviation sector is in now, with air tickets going as far as how many times the minimum wage? Anyway, just say.
By my calculation, perhaps about 12 times the minimum wage.
Oh, Christ. Why do you have to
That's for domestic costs now. Don't even go near costs for international air tickets.
I don't even want to go there.
All right, let's go above the nameplate and just take a few more stories before we exit Daily Trust. There's this one, Oba Jana standoff, Dangote to approach court as Kogi moves to recover company. That's a trail on the continuing disputes between the Kogi state government and Dangote company over something that has to do with the legal requirements, the legal shares due to the state government. And lastly, PDP 2023, PDP flags off presidential campaign in Uyo today. That's the Daily Trust newspaper for you.
Or take a look at New Telegraph next. 2023, APC Northern Christians, Muslims unite against same-faith candidacy. Sets up committee may adopt consensus candidate. What does that mean? In context of the Electoral Act, that is. But Benue chapter's crisis deepens as young Alaji pulls out of campaign council. Tinubu hope for better Nigeria, says Swagger. But you have to pick up the paper and, just make sense of all these acronyms and who's who, what's going on. It's a lengthy read, I tell you. They give you quite some coverage. And then beneath that lead story, insecurity. Nigerians have lawful rights to bear arms for self-defense, says lawyers. Police arrest gun runner. Bandits recover ammunition in Kaduna. 2023, enemies of Nigeria may introduce violence, says ex-DSS director. So the thing is, who qualifies or can be classified as enemies of Nigeria? But now you think that, well, I don't know who foments violence in the manner of speaking to affect certain things, fit into that bill. Well, now that it's coming from an ex-DSS director, you could then think, okay, this will be matters of state, right? Or those who foment what? Terroristic tendencies or actions or activities against the state may qualify, since it may be the thinking behind this. But there you go. There's so much on the front page here. Well, that is a New Telegraph this morning.
Well, let's take a look at Vanguard for you. They have this 400 billion naira goods. Yeah, 400 billion naira goods rot away over demurrage shipping costs.
Oh,
that's the lead story on the front page of Vanguard this morning. Shippers blame manual inspection. Foreign shipping firms, terminal operators slam 60 billion naira charges. Importers abandon 7,000 containers as backdoor cargo releases thrive. So if you know the back door, well,
why would neighboring countries benefit from this kind of scenario?
Why won't they? Export cargoes perish at the terminals, and we want to be, we're spending quite a lot of money trying to encourage manufacturers and, especially manufacturers and small businesses to add value to their product so that we can export it. And this is what is happening. They are perishing at terminals.
Whatever happens to ease of doing business now?
I don't know. We're ready to deploy scanners soon. That's according to customs. The question is, how many years will it take? We knew about this now for how many years? Oh, well, page 21 will give you details. You have a bit of politics for you. PDP crisis. Atiku has moved on without Wike others. That's according to a PCC source. It's on page 5. Omeha, Wike displaying punitive arrogance. That's from Toyin Cole. Omeha didn't beg or force Wike for recognition. That's according to a PDP chieftain. If you look on the corner here, NAFDAC raises alarm over cough syrups. 66 children die in the Gambia. It's a page 9 read. And thankfully, quite a number of social media handles which deal with health are doing a great job of enlightening people about these cough syrups are deadly, but the original announcement actually came from NAFDAC itself. So for those who are wondering if NAFDAC is aware, page 9 will give you all of the details. Mr. and Mrs. is on the front page this morning. Mr. is being mischievous. I take it as the mischief of the cartoonist. It's October and it's also Breast Cancer Awareness Month. You might want to read what the joke is about right on the front page of Vanguard newspapers. Maybe at the same time, take a look at what's happening with Vanguard Sports. But let's leave it there for Vanguard newspapers.
Yeah, that also ends it with a look at some of the dailies here this morning. We will be back in just a moment. Stay with us.
Whether through the legitimate oil sale by the federal government and now the outrageous and audacious stealing and refining, Nigeria's sweet crude is having a sore commentary in recent times. Stories now abound in public domain following our reports on the extent of theft and consequences seen in the sharp drop of production numbers for one of OPEC's significant members. Earlier, Channels Television brought you exclusive pictures, the first by any media station in Nigeria, of one of the suspected stealing points. That offshore platform is known as the Afremo A platform offshore Escravos and is owned by Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria. So this oil platform has 3 main pipelines traveling from here all the way to Escravos, and it is buried under the sea and through this swamp. This is what happens. There are 3 lines here. This is the test line, and that's the line they have decided to use. So it tells you that this is very active. If you look at this line, you see that it's not active. Everything around here is dried. The same with that other one. You can see the screws, the nuts are all dried up. But if you see this place, it raises suspicion. Now, whenever they're ready to siphon oil, they remove this, tighten it all back. It tells you, look at this, it tells you that this is active. This is very active. I mean, it's not well screwed and all of that. So it tells you they do this regularly. They open this valve. Of course, this travels all the way into onshore. So it goes all the way whenever they are ready. You can see that there's nothing connected to this exit point. It's a test line. It is not supposed to be an active line. But look at this. This tells you there's been a fresh onslaught. There's been fresh discharge from this point. This is crude, not engine oil, not any other thing. This is crude. So they connect a hose to this place and run it to a vessel, a flatbed vessel, not the very big ones, a flatbed vessel that can take between like 4 or 5 tons to about 6 tons because of the draft of this side of the water. And so how do you know that this is an active platform? Because if it wasn't, look at this place. Look at this. Look at this. The same point. This is active crude. If this wasn't active, then this crude shouldn't be here. Look at it. This is crude oil. It should be sealed up like this, or sealed up like this, covered. But see, so where is the cover of this pipe is the question. We asked Shell's representative what they knew of this connection, or why, despite their claimed surveillance apparatus, didn't capture this.
We did not know of this thing until when our guys discovered it when they're doing ground project.
When was that?
That was on the 1st of this month of October. And it captured in our system.
Just 1 month ago?
Yes, one week ago.
Just 1 week ago?
Yes.
Interesting.
Let's go to the next one.
Interesting. 1 week ago. Given the number of years this might have gone on, the quantity stolen, will fall in the region of millions. It was a daring undertaking to follow the crude line to this 2.5 miles location using boats, but an effort worth the risk. No one expects the scale of investigation to be meager. What will be interesting and deterring will be the sheer number of persons who may be involved in these years of suspected racket and how they will be prosecuted, especially how retribution will be made to the country Nigeria. Olu Phillips, Channels Television News.
Well, Martin Onovo joins us this morning. He is a petroleum engineer and a former presidential candidate of the NCP. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.
There isn't any need for any prologue, but you saw all of that. What do you make of it?
Well, I'm not surprised. It's not new. We live in a very dysfunctional environment, and this has been happening for a long time, and everybody's aware. It's just that I think that this is the highest scale we have seen, and also the circumstances of the economy now caused the alarm that has led to all this, because you know, it was reported that for 4 months, the NNPC did not pay anything to the Federation account, so everybody's interest is there. I mean,
But where the GMD of the NNPCL said this has been on for more than 22 years, but they discovered this pipe that's been there for about 13 years or thereabouts.
well, they keep changing their story, so we also need to question their credibility. They started with it was 7 years, then they claimed it was 9 years. How come you know how long it is if you didn't put it there? There are a few things that are clear that nobody can question. We had the case of the African Pride, marine tanker African Pride, that we lost. I'm not sure the right choice of words. We lost in Navy custody. How the Nigerian Navy loses a marine tanker that was arrested for crude oil theft. I think that was 2004 or thereabouts. So the case of the MT African Pride is there. 2 or 3 naval admirals got sacked on that case, and there were allegations of $5 billion in bribe on that case. So that's why I say I'm not surprised. It's nothing new.
So $5 million in bribe.
Yes.
And somebody was, you know, someone belted the cat, so to speak.
Yes, I like your choice of words.
Now, if someone, you know,
I think 2 admirals.
got the raps for that.
2 admirals.
Some people
Yes.
got the raps for that, and they gave bribes. Wasn't there any investigation to say, okay, these are the people that were also involved in this?
Well, the way this thing is, from my point of view, I don't want to assert what I'm not 100% sure of, because this is criminal, so it's underground. But we can give scenarios. The way this thing is, it's a rogue cop situation. That's what it is. It's a rogue cop situation. So the policeman that is supposed to arrest the armed robber is the armed robber himself. So who will arrest the armed robber?
My turn to say, I like your choice of words, rogue cop.
It's a rogue cop situation.
Which brings me to the oil platform, where this latest, oil theft has been discovered, belonging to Shell. Can Shell afford to stand back and be neutral amid this theft? Should questions be asked of Shell, and should we be getting answers?
It's clearly a very large syndicate of syndicates. This is not easy to do.
What is not easy to do?
Oil theft on this scale. Of course, on the scale of what you people call illegal refineries, that I call pollution plants, because as a professional, I can't call those things refineries. They are pollution plants.
Well, the NNPC calls them cooking pots.
Okay. So, but the media calls them illegal refineries. I find that not suitable, because the damage they are doing is very significant. It seems to mitigate the level of damage they are doing. So those ones are stealing crude, there's no question.
Who are those ones?
The pollution plants that we call illegal refineries.
But you haven't answered her question about should Shell be answering questions?
I'm trying to link it all, because crude oil theft is not only this export level, which is the biggest level. There's also that level of so many pollution plants stealing at so many different points. Speaking professionally, in any typical design and typical operation, the lines have meters on your source and have meters on your sink. That's number one. Number two, lines have performance. So the engineers in charge and even the operators know the performance of their lines. If you compromise any line, operator should know. Because, for example, the first thing you notice is the pressure drop. Second thing is that your metering at your source and your metering at your sink has disparity. So it's impossible to do these things. These things only happen in Nigeria.
So now...
It's impossible to do these things.
Impossible to do what?
This oil theft is impossible, but it happens in Nigeria.
Essentially, what are you saying by that? That the hunter is also the hunted?
Oh, yes, that's the road cop, number one. Okay. Secondly, I'm saying it's a syndicate of syndicates.
So when you say syndicate of syndicates, I'm trying to understand, because we've had government in this country well before 22 years ago. We've had governments active in this country for 22 years. No break whatsoever, especially at the federal level. So if this has been happening and you're saying it is impossible to happen, and it is happening, what then could be the implication? Are you saying that government agencies are sleeping on the job, or what exactly are you...
No. Sleeping on the job will be very mild. The presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party directly accused the federal government of Nigeria. Directly, at the NBA conference. Directly. And I will tell you with full professional authority, having been in this industry all around the world, Europe, North America, Africa, that I think he's right.
And to add to that...
Sorry, Bukola. When you say you are joining him to accuse the federal government,
yes.
let's decrypt government.
Thank you very much. For example, for marine operations, exports, the Navy provides security. Let us take the case of this MT Heroic Idun. The first thing is that you guys need to appreciate that the level of theft we are talking about is not a 20-liter jerry can. That particular vessel, this recent one of August, is what you classify in IMO, International Maritime Organization, as VLCC, very large crude carrier. It does over 2 million barrels, my brother. Barrels, not liters. 1 barrel is 159 liters. So understand the phenomenal quantities we're talking about. You need to understand that. It's not a mobile phone you put in your pocket and you hide and nobody sees you. Security man does not see you. This is funny.
And as a very quick follow-up to that,
Sorry, just one more sentence. That particular vessel, you know how long a 100 meters dash lane is? That particular vessel is longer than 300 meters. Now, is this something that the Navy cannot see? It's almost half a kilometer in length. It's a very large crude carrier. It carries over 2 million barrels. This one is reported to have capacity for 3 million barrels. Now, the Nigerian Navy is telling childish stories and the media is allowing them to get away with it. It entered our waters, you were not aware. It loaded at a legitimate platform. It left our waters, only to be arrested in Equatorial Guinea. So you are now admitting that the Equatorial Guinea Navy is superior to our capacity. So there are just too many things the media allows these people to get away with at press conferences. They just talk nonsense and we let them get away with it.
But the president is the Minister of Petroleum.
No, but people are talking. For example, the GMD spoke. And to me, from where he spoke, if the energy correspondents had confronted him properly, he would leave the position. And nobody would dare this kind of nonsense. It was the same thing he did when we had the case of the OSPEC PMS product. I also said that is impossible based on the routine. It cannot happen.
And the man leading
so the day you compromise a line, the engineers and the operators know that same day. So you can't be telling a story like this.
The man leading the charge in the discovery of this, oil theft has also made some very daring allegations that the route through which this siphoned oil pass are manned by security agents.
Oh, clearly now.
In the persons of,
very
Navy
clearly.
officials and soldiers. So are you looking forward to seeing any significant prosecution, arrest, and a demand of accountability by this government from those who are involved in line with these allegations?
Well, I can tell you that we have seen so far, I mean, this case of the heroic Idun is since August, this October. So any government that is really interested in investigating anything would have made progress after 2 months. But what we're hearing is stories and fairy tales and childish acts of irresponsibility and even impunity. The very same thing. Why did we as a people, because we need to stop blaming people in power and blame ourselves. Why did we as a people allow them? The more recent one was the OSPEC PMS product. Why did we allow them to get away with it? I mean, that one was explained in such a senseless and unprofessional way, and we let them get away with it.
But what can people do really?
No, the first thing is if you interrogate it, and then the facts become clearer instead of these dirty stories they tell. For example, in the case of the PMS, the Minister of State says inspection failure. Meaningless to me as a professional. The GMD of NMPC said that the test schedule does not include methanol. Silly, completely silly. Completely unprofessional. Imbecilic. But you can even see the inconsistency in their two stories. Now, I've done this for this country.
Let me now come in there with
so
this.
I know how it is done.
I don't know if
how what is done.
Shipping products. I know how it's done. It's very simple. In any port where you're shipping or terminal, first, if it is Nigeria, you have DSS, you have customs. Now, if a vessel comes to my terminal to load, I have my custody transfer metering systems. The vessel has its own custody transfer metering systems. Then normally you nominate inspectors. Do you understand? And this is the standard worldwide. For example, how many people in Nigeria know that just like your vehicle is registered and has plate number, every vessel, marine vessel, has IMO registration, and they are tracked online, real time. Every registered IMO vessel, you can say where it is at any point in time, globally. Unless it's not IMO registered, in which is a criminal vessel. So it is impossible for these things to happen. I don't know how else to explain it. But they happen because I will say it's a rogue cop situation. And I'm not the only one saying it. Other professionals like myself, like Engineer Alex Ney, has said it. That government better stop telling this kind of silly stories.
Mr. Noble,
yes.
If this has gone on for a very long time, why now? Why the renewed, why the vigor that we see now in the discovery of illegal pipelines, oil theft, and all of that? Why now?
It's first is that this thing is beneficial. What do I mean is beneficial? If you look at the case of this recent case of Heroic Idun, 3 million barrels, $100 per barrel, that's $300 million. If you do that 3 times, you have $1 billion. So you understand, it's very beneficial. And all the syndicates can get enough money And all the members of each syndicate can get enough money. So that's number one. Number two, what you tolerate. And that's why I'm saying we need to blame ourselves, because we tolerate all this. These things are not new. We tolerate them. These people call press conferences and they talk nonsense and we let them get away. So we're tolerating it. And then we put it on the front page, making ourselves look stupid and incompetent.
So what should the people do? What should the media do? You know, I mean, from the report that you saw, on the screen just before we came on, Channels Television went much deeper than...
Oh, yes, and did what nobody else has done before. Showed the tap.
That's all the media can do.
No, the media can do a lot more. No, the media can do a lot more. The media can do a lot more. Because
before you crucify us in the media, let me point this out. Just recently, about 4 months or thereabout ago, the Rivers State governor, went around his own state saying, look, these things are illegal. I may not have authority over petroleum resources and all of that because it's in the exclusive list, but I know criminality when I see one. What's wrong with other state governors or governments in the oil-producing areas doing the same and calling out the people who are... Because there are those who would say, if the state governments themselves had made noise the way the River State governor made noise, albeit late because there have been governments before him, why not other state governors do that?
The first thing is that I will not think that ordinarily a state governor has sufficient capacity for that. What do I mean? Because like the Rivers governor says, responsibility. Responsibility. For example, yes, you will say constitutionally he's chief security officer, but we know he doesn't command any police. We know he doesn't command the military. We know that. So I will say the principal institutions will be the oil companies themselves. But you also listen to them and they say, what can we do? The people are armed, they are dangerous, the security agencies are not.
My point here...
Let's get everybody.
My point here, because I understand also what the CDS said, the Chief of the Defense Staff, and the GMD of the NNPCL has also said. But then there is also the concern of the communities. I just recently, I think Mr. Government Pampolo or something was saying that, look, all of our aquatic life is gone.
Oh, clearly not.
And it's as a result of this. That is something governors of the oil-producing areas have authority over. They can do something to protect their own people, protect the economic life of their people. But with all of that going on, it's clearly... So that's the point that I'm making about governors themselves going out and saying, we need to bring this to the fore, so that we can put an end to it.
If you insist on that, you remember the case of the River State governor that you're talking about, saying that one of the police commanders was operating an illegal refinery. So who's going to stop him? Where is weakest police to stop an illegal refinery operated by a police commander? Where is his own police? So you can say all these things and we can pretend and say, you should have taken care of it, or I should have taken care of it. Let's deal with it.
Okay,
because
so if governments, state governments cannot do it, what can the media do?
A lot.
You just said it now, that a government that has executive powers does not have power.
You forgot
Our job is to call people out, tell them that you are accountable. You're supposed to be accountable to your people, which is what we're doing.
No, don't make a mistake of thinking that I'm putting the media on trial, because the media didn't steal the crude.
No, we didn't.
I'm not putting the media on trial. The media didn't steal the crude. I'm just saying that, for example, the Constitution says the media holds the government accountable to the people. That's the side I'm going to. That's what the Constitution says. That's not my opinion. That's what our Constitution, Nigerian Constitution, says. And I'm saying that if the GMD of NNPC calls a press conference and talks nonsense, he should be asked questions that show that what he's talking is nonsense. Not he gets a clap and then all the front pages carry the nonsense. And then the ordinary people believe that that is the right thing.
I'm wondering what that nonsense is. But Chamberlain has a question for you.
I've given you many examples.
Chamberlain, go ahead.
Many examples.
Well, Mr. Novo, clearly, I mean, there are so many things that don't add up. So many questions about this kind of thing. And players in that sector, too, I mean, several of them, we'll be reading several pieces from a lot of them who always tell us that, look, that these kind of things, it's not something that a small fry can do. And,
thank you very much for that.
For instance, you know, if there's no pressure on the pipe, or if there's pressure on the pipe, you know you can't go and clamp anything on that. So they have to have information before you go in there and execute certain things. And then we know these crudes, they've got their signature. For any tanker to go in and load, you have to have the coordinates. So there's several things that don't add up on this. I mean, just to mention a few of those. But from your perspective, being a petroleum engineer, knowing how some of these things work, because now they've tried to tell us that it's, what, is it put there in 9 years or is it 8 years? Many will always say, okay, first, how did they know it was that long? And then if it was 8 or 9 years, it's a simple thing. We just go back and check how much were we producing at that time. If it was that time, how much are we producing now? So clearly, some persons may be trying to hide some things, so that would not be new. But if you were to advise, and the president is the Minister of Petroleum, so the buck stops at his table, what would you advise he does to ensure that if we can't get to the bottom, but at least they put in place the right system and structure to ensure that these kind of things will address the very core reason why this is happening?
Well, just to agree with you, I will also add that the president is not just the Minister of Petroleum. He's the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. He's the Chief Responsibility Officer of the government of Nigeria. So all this is his responsibility, not just oil production and oil theft. Everything is his responsibility. He's the Chief Responsibility Officer. And he must take responsibility. And part of taking responsibility is to admit that he has failed in his responsibility, because otherwise these things cannot happen like I said. They are impossible. They are happening, but they are impossible from our perspective as professionals. And that is why if you hear any handsome professional talk about this, he's dismissive about it. It is not possible. There are too many checks. And I just gave you the example of vessel enter our territory. Navy should know. You should enter with an APC clearance if you are coming to load. The clearance says everything, including how much you're supposed to load. Now, who loads you? Now, like I said, if you compromise my line today, I will know today because I know the performance of my line. The day you compromise my line, I will know. So, and that's why I said, there are too many syndicates. And like you, Chamberlain said, how do they know when the line is active if it is not a regular routine production line, like a loading line? A loading line, how do you know when I'm going to load? Even when I was doing this for this country, it is when I'm told that get ready to load, a vessel is coming. That's when I know. We're expecting a vessel in 2 days. You guys get ready to load. That's when I know. So
yeah,
the
second part of this, Mr. Novo,
yes,
is that, pardon me to jump in, do you know,
sure,
as much as, yes, the buck stops at the president's table, but the experts in this industry are the ones who are doing the job right there. So, because he will ultimately rely on them to do whatever he directs them to do. And one wonders, just sitting back and looking through, but there are lots of professionals in this sector. The IOCs are there. They're supposed to operate at the highest levels of international standards. So how is it that all of this is happening with all those professionals who, at least, we don't know, didn't blow the whistle, as it were?
You will be very unfair to the professionals, because they blew the whistle and they have been blowing it, and they have been blowing it repeatedly. And I know a few companies that have shut down significant production because of this. And it's been even in the media where the companies are complaining. And that's why I told you earlier that if you compromise my line today, I will know today. It's not tomorrow that I get to know. In addition, for modern systems that have what we call SCADA, Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition System, you're sitting in a control room and you see everything online real time. So and that's why I say these things are impossible. And that's why you need to understand that it is done at a very high level. For example, this vessel now, this Heroic Idun, one of the reports says operated by Transfigura. Transfigura is a registered NNPC oil trader. And that's why I started with the rogue cop situation. So sometimes, if it's a rogue cop situation and you're reporting the crime to the rogue cop himself, I don't know what you really expect. Because if you look clearly and critically and at the statements made by the Chief of Naval Staff, you will see that he pointed fingers at the NNPC. So why are we looking for? There are people who are responsible. Why are we looking elsewhere? And those same people who are responsible, other people have pointed fingers at them. How did a vessel, so if it is right, we can confirm, it can be verified whether it's operated by Trafigura. Trafigura has been involved in oil trading before I graduated. And I'm a retiree. so nothing is new here.
Mr. Novo, you mentioned SCADA the other time. I wonder if SCADA is the same as the tracker that Council approved 17 billion naira for in 2018, which was not bought till now. By our checks, it has still not been bought. Why do you think Council is going the way of a private security firm to monitor pipelines and discover all this theft rather than the tracker?
Well, first is that SCADA is you install it on your own facility. So that will be the responsibility of the oil company. I'm just saying that we will know whether we have SCADA or not. We will know what is happening with our facility. That is why we are professionals. If you compromise a line, the performance changes. The pressure characteristics change. You know your equipment, you know your systems. When it changes, you know it has changed. And using your training, you know what can cause such changes. And that's why I'm saying if you compromise my line today, I know today, I'm not going to. In fact, within less than 30 minutes, if you compromise my line, I will know.
So you know that you're saying government has known this for a very long time.
Yes, and I'm saying that the oil companies have complained, both local and international oil companies have been complaining, oil theft, oil theft.
At the end of the day, what you're saying
and I'm saying we had the case of African Pride. So what were the lessons learned from African Pride?
So what you are saying essentially is government has known this for a while and government is complicit.
Yes, clearly. And I'm saying that the presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party, Prince Adebayo Adewale, said that at the NBA conference, and he was direct. He said, Nigerian government is stealing 70% of our
So is this private security arrangement, is it worth it? The report is worth 42 billion naira.
I will say that the private security arrangement first amounts to, what's the right word, abdication? What's the right word? That government has abandoned its responsibility. Now, you want a private security organization to achieve what the Nigerian Navy cannot achieve. Are you not suggesting that the private security organization has higher capacity than the Nigerian Navy? Which is also what you suggested with Hiroiki Idun being arrested by Equatorial Guinea Navy. You couldn't arrest it. It was in your territory. Equatorial Guinea arrested. You are suggesting that Equatorial Guinea has superior naval capacity to Nigeria?
Well, you've asked more questions than we have asked.
No, I've answered all the questions.
We have to thank you because, I mean, we can only wait for how government is going to respond to these and several others in the light of the commitment that the CDS and the NNPC GML has made. For now,
you believe them? I don't believe them.
They said
just take note that I don't believe them.
We report.
If you choose to believe them,
we report
that's media business.
We bring
and the media, they're my friends, but they accuse me of accusing them.
Petroleum engineer. We have to thank you very much. It sounds like you're still going to be back, but for now we have to thank you very much. He's a petroleum engineer, he's also former presidential candidate of the NCP. Once again, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So Sunrise continues right after now with more. Please stay with us.
Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, now we turn our attention to politics, and as you may have seen, observed over the weekend, different protests, rallies, I should say, for different political parties in support, of course, of their candidates who they always believe that they will clinch it at the end of the day. Well, we'll examine some developments within those political parties, and at the moment, we're joined by Senator Ayo Arishi, who is a member of the APC. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Nice to see you again.
Thank you. So, maybe we should even ask, how is the campaigns going on now for your party, even though there are questions as to, is everything properly constituted now? Have they kicked off? What's going on?
Well, people are working. There are different groups, working at the grassroots level. And of course, a few days ago, the Swagger people were in Oshun, and they had a very big rally. They campaigned at the grassroots level, and that has been going on, in most of the southwestern states. Different groups from different parts of the country, they're engaged in campaigns right now. Nobody's actually waiting for the committee or anything before they do what is needful. So the idea of the fact that this election will have to be taken to the people has defined the modus operandi for the campaign. Everybody is actually working to ensure victory for the party. So, but a proper launch will take place. I mean, you would agree that a campaign...
When is that going to happen?
Well, that is dependent on the party and the campaign organization itself. So, as soon as, of course, it was supposed to be on the 10th, but it has been shifted. So, as soon as things are in place, particularly there were questions about the members of the committee. It's like everybody wants to have, wants to be recognized.
We understand that they're reviewing the list now, just
yes.
checking every name just to be sure they're reviewing the list so that they can, as you say, carry as many people along as possible. So that's part of what's delaying that list from...
Yes, I believe so. And they're looking critically again to be sure that, okay, those they're putting in positions, they're really people who are committed, ready to work for the victory of the party. Most of the lists, the lists constituted in the past, yes, very good lists, but a little bit too few for those who are interested in actually working.
When you say that everybody is working, yes. Because, I mean, even at the grassroots level, you'll always have people who will campaign no matter what happens or what's happening at the top.
Sure.
But it appears as though there are those who are working at cross purposes, not working in unison for the party. For instance, I mean, the meeting that was held by Northern Leaders Consultative Group on the 8th of October at the NAF Center, Kado, where they're saying they will not work with or for the same faith ticket candidature. So that to them is this is a no-no. We can't push this. And they're strong on that, saying that's clearly going to affect your party. How's your party going to handle that?
Well, you have to give it to the leaders of the party and the candidates themselves that, look, this election is about winning, and it's about the numbers. As undesirable as the same faith ticket is, it appears that under the
you also think it's undesirable?
Of course, I mean, I would have preferred a situation where you have a Muslim-Christian situation, but because of what is on the ground, when you take a Christian as your vice president from the north, how is that person going to win any votes in the east, which constitute the majority of the Christians in the country? It's looking more like the Eastern Bloc is very likely going to vote for Obi. It's looking more like that, because these are sentiments that we have not been able to get rid of in our polity. It's always going to happen. Now, most of the Southwest will vote for Tinubu, Christian, Muslim, it doesn't matter, because we have, by and large, intermarried, we live to. I mean, it's not an issue. We're talking of, the problems that we have in the country. How do we tackle it?
Many actually thought that probably by now it might have been a non-issue within members of the party, that let them just go and see if Nigerians will elect them. But the Northern Consultative Group, if anyone should understand, they are the ones who perhaps are supposed to be more understanding than their Southern counterparts. But here they are saying, this is an issue. So it then raises the question as to the kinds of consultation that went on before that announcement was made, because those who think if it was properly done, this wouldn't be coming up even until now.
Well, Chamberlain, there is no perfect solution anywhere. There is, even if Tinubu had picked a Christian, look at it between the bloc and the Northeast, where we have Christians. If you had picked one of them, the other one that is not picked, or the rest, they will not be feeling maybe marginalized. It's a problem of politics.
That's hypothetical, so we don't know, but you're in politics, so you will know.
Of course, because you look at it when, even if I'm working and at the end of the day, I don't get, I mean, my own politics is quite different from the average politician. But if I don't get picked, I'll feel shortchanged, and the zeal will no longer be as, it's supposed to be. That is the selfishness about politics. So when you look at it, the party has come up with a candidate. And it's not as if we've not seen something like that in the past. We had the scenario of Abiola Kengibe. They were both Muslims. Things like this, where we should be looking more
but we know there were
at
different
productivity
at that time.
Of course.
Completely different.
Yes. But when you look at the record of Ashwaju in Lagos, the current VP was his commissioner.
Yeah, but Senator, this not
when you look at what's happened there, and the last two governors, which came in with the influence of Ashwaju, they were Christians. So these are not issues that we feel like, okay, the moment Ashwaju wins this election, that his focus will be on religion. If it's on religion, we're not going anywhere. The truth of the matter is, religion will not take us to space. It's not going to resolve our power problems. So,
that's, I mean, I'm sure a lot of Nigerians can appreciate that but we also know that religion is a big part. Well, I think what Chamberlain has tried to highlight is that it was aimed that within your party, religion is still a problem. And so, there are questions as to if it is a problem for members of your own party, who should be going out to defend this, or who should be going out to say it doesn't matter, but it is a problem for them. How do you then present a united front in the face that all of the APC has to defend or market, as we go into the 2023 elections?
Well, like I have said, you see, it's not as if these Christians who are members of the party who are totally opposed to this Muslim ticket will come into power and begin to champion religious activities. It's part of our developmental process that will begin to educate our people that religion does not feed you.
This education?
And it doesn't make our roads.
This education, is it going to start within your own party?
No. Look at it this way. We are saying we want, I mean, it's not as if we want, but mandatorily, we have to have another president because the incumbent is leaving office. Now, are we going to tell the new president that everything that was being done in the old ways should remain? It should now go there and begin to talk about religion. We are saying it should not be the case. He has his own, there is an agenda, there is a demand for the nation where we have unemployment to be resolved, we have lack of productivity to be resolved, we have the power problem to be resolved. There are so many things confronting us in the country.
I'm glad that you also highlight all of these issues which are to be resolved.
Yes.
Unemployment, electricity, security, production. The economy is, inflation is running away with the wind, etc. The exchange rate is something else. No one can understand what is happening with that. It's almost impossible to export or even import products. I mean, if you got to go with what the dailies have on their front pages this morning, it should be something that should worry any government. And the truth of the matter is that it is your own party which is sitting at the highest levels of government, that if anything were to be done about this situation, it should be your party which has its feet to the fire. So if these problems persist, despite your 7 years of being in government, what really are you going to be telling the Nigerian people?
Well, thank you very much. Like I said earlier, government is work in progress. Everything you've highlighted, there have been solutions, there has been improvements from this APC government. And the foundations being laid are things that you can hardly challenge. Now, we had power problems. We had a situation where we have NEPA, we have all these distribution companies. Now, I understand an act has been, passed to ensure that private people, state governments, can begin to generate their own power. That is a foundation for that sector, to see or witness very good reform. That is one area. And I've discussed in the past that the foundation being laid by this government to even know who are Nigerians through the national identity registration is humongous. We've moved from like about 10, 20 million people to close to 100 million registration. And that is the foundation for
development. Let me take you back to electricity.
Now, yes.
Let me take you back to electricity because you talked about how people have now been, private companies have now been empowered to be, and state governments can now generate their own electricity. As at 7 years ago, we were producing around 3,000 or so megawatts. We're still where we are. We haven't been able to, go beyond what it was that the PDP government left for this administration. We've been told that, the TCN, it has increasing capacities to hold much more or to transmit much more. But from what we have seen, every time the grid is challenged or every time there is an attempt to put much more on the grid, it collapses. So can you really say empirically that we have done any much different or that the Nigerian people have witnessed anything different from what they witnessed in the PDP era?
The same thing, I will go back to the same answer, that the fact that this situation persists is what has informed the government that, look, we need to change the dynamics. They have recognized that it's a problem. And they have now come up with a word that, look, private people, in the past, if that were to be the case, in the last 7 years, then it would have been possible for us to increase generation, to increase transmission, and so much so that if the distribution companies are able to receive generated power in adequate measure, we'll feel it at the consumer's level. Right now, the generation at 7,000 has not improved because people have not been allowed to generate. Now people are now able to generate. So we are looking at the future. That's okay. These are the problems. And it's even a good thing that these things have been pointed out. And that's the responsibility of the public and the press. Right. That, look, we challenge our government. That, look, you are not doing this. And what are the responses? The other day, you saw what happened at the National Assembly. The president was being threatened with impeachment because to know the gravity of how the security is worrying the society, things have improved.
Yeah, we've since been joined by Chief Dele Momodu, who is the Director of Strategic Communications of the PDP. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, and thanks for inviting me.
Well, we did ask him about the internal developments within his party that may stall their working together in unison rather than across purposes, as it appears to many. So the same question will go to you as well. What is strategic? Because we read today that the party seems to be moving on without the aggrieved group, which Rivers Governor is involved in. Perhaps you could tell us, is that the case? Has the party moved on without reconciling with the group?
Oh, I mean, reconciliation is a continuum. It's a process. And it is virtually impossible sometimes to have 100% of a group of people agree on the same things. I know that even just a few days ago, some of our people were still talking to the aggrieved parties. But I can tell you 80% were ready. We're very ready. I mean, if you look at the composition of the Presidential Campaign Council, if you look at the caliber of people, the technocrats, the professionals, I mean, you will know that PDP is way ahead of all the other parties.
But you know that 20% is more than a fine margin, and it could cost you the elections.
I said, as of today,
80%.
You will have 80%. By tomorrow, it might be 90%. About 2-3 weeks ago, maybe it was much less. I know a lot of people who were aggrieved, and as at last night, were talking to me that we're tired of this wahala. I'm telling you, it's the truth. But it's not everything you can divulge on television. But I know that the process is ongoing.
Okay, but
politicians like action.
But this 20% is with the Wiki group that's not been fully reconciled.
Not necessarily. What happens is that there are people who are attached emotionally to certain groups. They are tired, but so that nobody will accuse them of disloyalty. So they are just perching and waiting. But I can tell you, politicians love action. The moment they start seeing their mates, going around, doing what they need to do, they also want to be a part of that action. That's why I'm telling you that by tomorrow, it might be 90-95%. I'm very sure of that. Some parties have not even been able to take off at all. We are very organized. We have everything in place. I resumed office. I was announced Thursday night. By Friday morning, I was already at the party office. So we're ready.
Why is this so difficult to reconcile, to make it 100% or 90%?
Husband and wife can go their separate ways and they can come back later. It happens.
But the party always says that we're the largest party, we're the oldest party. Yeah, they can't reconcile.
That is why you will appreciate the 80%. The 80% of PDP is more than 200% of some other parties.
Well, today it's supposed to be the big flag off. I don't know if it's still happening today, considering the fact that it's a public holiday in Akwa Ibom State.
Oh, we're on ground. I was on my way to Uyo when I got a call from my brother that we should come, and that's the seriousness that we attach to this work. So I immediately contacted Governor Tambua and former Governor Leah Limoke, and I told them, what do we do? He said, no. This is very important. Go to channels. And here we are. We're very ready. Everybody's there. Our candidate landed in Uyo yesterday. And I mean, if you're on social media, you will have seen the ecstasy all over Akwa Ibom at the moment.
For a number of people, I mean, yes, we're used to rallies, and maybe that also, wakes a bit of excitement amongst the Nigerian population. And for a number of people, yes, they look forward to that. They love the rallies. They're like big parties, carnivals, more or less. But increasingly, people are beginning to say that political parties cannot run in the manner that they have been running. We have like the longest period, the longest campaign season that we have seen in quite a while. How does your party intend to maximize it in such a way that, whatever it is that it is promising the Nigerian people is broken down in a way that provides room for engagement, not just, sloganeering and how do I put it now? Just with the excitement that the rallies bring, but to actually get forums whereby conversations are had between those who want to govern and those whom they seek to govern.
That is why I am here. Last night, if you were on social media, I was engaging people, including the obedience, and a lot of them, if you go, it's recorded on my Instagram page, till 1 a.m. I did not sleep. I was engaging people, talking to them, and they are amazed at the man. A lady called from the US in the night and started saying all sorts about our candidate, Atiku Abubakar is this and that. And I just played the tape. Chief Obasanjo once said something about him. I played the tape. I said, you all refer to what was said before, but you did not refer to what was said after in 2019. So there is a lot that we're doing. We are not using the traditional methods. We're not using the analog method. We are very digital. I can tell you there are not many people today who can use Twitter Space the way I do, who can use Instagram Live, who can do Facebook Live, who can go on Clubhouse. We're modern. And that is why our candidate has surrounded himself with the best team you will find anywhere in the world.
Senator is grinning about that. I'm sure, but Senator will say, well, you forgot some of us here. Can you go and use that platform?
Oh, no, I want to see the platform and the followership. It's important.
All right, we'll dwell on that possibly when we return in just a moment after the break. Do stay with us. Welcome back. We're with Chief Dele Momodu, Director of Strategic Communication for the PDP, and Senator Ayo Arishe, who is a member of the APC. Well, Senator, today we've got two candidates, two presidential candidates, at least of the leading ones. Okay, I know they'll say, what about all the other political parties? Well, at least from the way it comes across, the APC and the Labour Party. So if you look at it from that perspective, then you have the PDP presidential candidate. So just to get an idea on face value, it suggests as though, how is it that the two Southern candidates will not cancel themselves out?
Oh, well, again, they will not cancel themselves out because traditionally, the Southwest and the Southeast, they've most of the time voted different ways. Now, the Southeast, we can yield that to obedient. The South-South, yes, maybe they'll be more like PDP people, but we are working very, very hard to ensure that at the very minimum, we're looking at about 30–40% in some of those places that have been traditionally held by opposition parties. And it's going to happen. Because we are talking of South-South, Ayade now is fully APC. It's very likely that he will deliver that state. Then in Ebonyi, there is no less than 90% chances that the APC that has an incumbent in place would also win Ebonyi. Now, the beauty of all this election now is that we've been improving on our electoral process. It's not a place, there is no situation whereby you now say because somebody is from the north and as such, everybody in the north is going to vote for him.
That's what you've done with the Southeast. That's what you've done with the Southeast.
No, it's not everybody in the Southeast. But winning is a different kettle of fish. And you require 25% in a specific number of states. It's in the Southeast, APC would have 25% in many of the states there. Because we have a lot of big names, not only big names, politicians, core politicians, who are in the APC. And they're working.
Let me ask you, just a moment,
yes.
How much influence, because, I mean, before now, one of the things that was told the young people, especially youth groups who were largely dissatisfied with how the APC has handled matters at the federal level, and, you know, who are now, you know, ardent supporters of the Labour Party candidate who call themselves the Obedience. One of the things they have been told is that you don't have a structure. Where is your structure? and you are basing part of your calculations on the fact that you have big names, so to speak.
Who have structures.
Who have structure, so to speak.
Yes.
But I'm wondering, really, if we're now in an era of enlightenment,
yes,
where largely people make up their minds for themselves who they want to vote for, regardless of, you know, who the big name within a party is in a particular community, how much influence would you say that these big names have on the grassroots or at the community level?
Okay, I would answer that. It's very simple. I'm from Oyekiti. And when there is an election, and I say, this is my party, I have paid some dues there that would endear the people to me, to vote. So in which case, I don't see an Obi coming to my local government to win an election. It's not possible, because I relate with these people, and when they have needs, they call me. They're not going to pick their phone to call Obedient or call Atiku. So, and we have islands of people like that in the APC. They've done, it's not about the federal government. The federal government cannot do everything. It's the person they see. How do you relate to them? What have you done for them? What is your role in the community?
You don't think that people are beginning to delineate their loyalties? I mean, like, if you were directly involved in the election, they can say, oh, we know to vote for you, but this person whom we have brought, we don't like the person. How about that?
It's possible. It is possible. But the person that we have brought, our candidate, everybody in this country knows Asiwaju.
Let me ask you.
He's been there.
Let me ask you, Mr. Momodu, how much influence do you think that these big names still wield in the politics? Because I'm sure you have been relating with young people. You've sensed the dissatisfaction. And in some instances, when you even mention big names, it seems to annoy them even more than placate them. What is your own experience?
Yeah, my experience is that our candidate, Atiku Abubakar, has the widest network in Nigeria and beyond. And he has surrounded himself with young people. He's very smart. He's the only one who had operated at the national level. All the other ones operated at the local level. So, as a global champion, we are able to go into every part of Nigeria, and you will find someone who is connected to the Atiku campaign. From his own calculation, APC has already lost the election. Because historically, whenever you have two strong southern candidates, it happened in 1979, it happened in 1983, Awolowo and Zik not being able to work together, they lost to Shagari. The same thing is going to happen. It's easier in the north to unite the people. Is it because in the north they take politics as a religion? Just like you have in Ghana, from the day you are born, you are either NDC or MPP. It's the same thing in the north. That is why we continue to complain. We will blow all the grammar on television and radio, but the people who will vote, if you saw what happened when Atiku Abubakar visited Bauchi last week, I saw movements. It was like a wind was blowing. Movement past movement. That is what we said at that time. So by the time you come to the south, where it says our friend, Professor Ben Ayade, is king, you will know that traditionally that is a PDP terrain. And that is a place where from the moment you are born, in Akwa Ibom, in Cross River, in River, most parts of Edo, where I come from, Delta, and now we have an opportunity to produce a vice president again from the South zone. Who is going to waste that? And that vice presidential candidate is not just from South, he's Ifeanyi. So he has his roots to Igbo land. You don't have such opportunity. By the time you come to Lagos, which is the traditional base of Asiwaju, of APC, you are going to split into three. I give it to you because of the preponderance of the Igbo community.
Why three?
Three. Oh, there will be Asiwaju, there will be followed by Atiku, then followed by Obi. I mean, there is a large Igbo community there, and there are a lot of young people who believe that Obi. So that is the most cosmopolitan state in Nigeria. But the moment you start moving into Ogun State, you go into Oyo State, where PDP is king today, because if you are talking about Ben Ayade in Cross River, we are king in Oyo State. Then you go to Osun State, where
king?
you are going to have governor.
Are you king in Ogun State too?
No, I said the moment you start, oh, of course, we compete favorably. It will be between Ashwaju and Atiku. There is no way Obi is going to get 25% in Ogun State. He's not going to get it in Oyo State. He's not going to get it in Osun State. We can make all the noise. You saw what happened during the last gubernatorial election in Osun State. There was no party outside those two that could make any appreciable impact.
Okay, our colleagues in Lagos have questions for you both. Go ahead, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Senator Arishe, I'd like to start with you and to refer to, the reaction of the Deputy National Secretary of your party to a comment ascribed to the Minister of Labour when he was asked over whom to support between the Labour Party presidential candidate and your candidate, your presidential candidate, and he said it's a difficult question to answer. This is reminiscent of the president's comment at a Southeast event recently when he said that those who should talk about the achievements of his administration are not talking about it. So it would seem as if there are discordant tunes in your party as to the sellability of your candidate and indeed based on the achievements of your party. How's the party dealing with this, and how do you think it will affect your chances at the polls?
I lost time.
Senator Arishe,
That's okay, but I didn't hear the totality of a question, but let me respond to the issue of Minister of Labour. You said the Minister of Labour could not tell who to vote for.
Yes, yes.
I mean, of the two candidates. Well, you would give it to the Southeast that they think it's their time to produce a president. But unfortunately, this has to be done through an election. You can't just handpick somebody and say, you are the next president. It's not possible. It has to go through an election. But as an Igbo person, if his sentiment is with Obi, that's, when you look at it, that questions the loyalty to the party, as that's the way I would look at it. For me, I'm an APC person. I would not, under any circumstance, have any difficulty choosing who my candidate is, unless I move from the party to another one. So for me, I didn't get the whole gist of that
but
conversation.
But then do you agree that he should resign?
Labour minister, yes.
Do you agree that he should resign based on the argument that as a sitting minister,
of course, if that,
he should be an apostle of your candidate?
Even asking him to resign shows lack of, I mean, it should be sacked. It's not a question of he should resign. If you are saying that you don't know your, and you are benefiting from the party, you are so, I mean, well, I do not want to criticize what I don't know the details about. But ordinarily, if that is the statement, to any minister, anybody serving under this government, who is not sure which party he wants to vote for, that person is just, I don't understand how people play games, around. It's very straightforward. If you ask me, I am not holding any post in APC, but I've chosen to be an APC member. So since I'm an APC member, you tell me this is our presidential candidate. That is my candidate, unless I'm in another party. Talk less of somebody who is holding a ministerial position. I don't think I want to get the details before I slaughter the man.
Well, Senator Arishe, even before you get the details, it will seem that that's a bold one. Let me now come to Mr. Momodu, you have spoken confidently about the chances of your party in the Southwest and even in the Southeast, which is where I'm headed. And we've seen the rallies in Delta State, the state where you have your vice presidential candidate, who's a sitting governor there. We've seen the rallies in the South, in Cross River State. I'm referring to the rallies of the Labour Party now, which seems a huge movement. Are you speaking in confidence out of wishful thinking now, or you're actually bold about the chances of your party in the South and in the Southeast, given the popularity of the Labour movement there?
I'm speaking as a good student of Nigerian history, a very good student of Nigerian history. Rallies alone will not determine who wins an election. I have no doubt in my mind that Peter Obi is a very popular candidate. But don't forget the proximity of Delta State to Southeast. In fact, they are almost one and the same. So if you have a rally, all you have to do is to cross over from Onitsha, from Oka, from everywhere. So these things can be arranged, but that is not where I'm going. Where I'm going is that if APC is saying they have big people in the Southeast, and we have two governors, one in Abia and one in Enugu, that tells you something. Then traditionally, Southeast and South-South are very pro-PDP. So there is a difference. APC is the one that we now have to struggle in those zones to make some impact. You have only Imo State at the moment. In Imo State, we will compete. We also have the Emeka Edewas and all of them in that zone. We have a lot. If you are talking about the biggest of the biggest in Nigerian politics, they are all there in the Southeast.
Okay.
So that is why I'm saying that we will do very well in the Southeast. We will do extremely well in the South-South, because that's our base.
But Chief,
that's where our vice presidential candidate comes from.
Let me quickly ask you something.
And when we now come to the Southwest, oh my God!
Well, just let me
Lagos.
Yes,
in 3 places. All the other places, it will be a straight fight between Atiku Abubakar and Tinubu.
Let me ask you a question, and I hope Senator Rishi might also want to respond to it. The spirit of the question Bukola asked is the agitation of young people all over the nation, and you know it seems it's the first time an organic huge number of young people are coming out to hold a position in politics in the country. The last time I heard something like this, you would recall, Chief Momodu, was in 1993. In the post-June 12 era. So it would seem like the young people are clearly dissatisfied with the two, parties represented in the studio in Abuja right there now. What is the message to them? Well, we can say that some have made up their minds, some are undecided, and some are, perhaps in your parties. What is the message to the young people that can give them hope that your party has something for them?
The message is simple and straightforward. We've had PDP as the longest, the oldest surviving political party in Nigeria. We've had the opportunity of juxtaposing what PDP did and what APC has done and still doing. Now, it is very clear that PDP was way ahead. Under President Obasanjo and Vice President Atiku Abubakar, we wrote off Nigeria's debts. Now, the debt is heavier than an elephant today. So people are seeing that. Number 2 is that elections are not won on agitation alone. Otherwise, everywhere in the world, opposition will get power every time there is an election. Elections are won through voters who are traditionally loyal to their parties and who are ready to queue up on the day of election. A lot of people who make noise sometimes are not able to translate that into reality. Atiku Abubakar is the only one who's been there. By the grace of God, next year will be 30 years of the June 12, 1993 anniversary. And it will be a crowning glory for my candidate. Why? In 1993, he was running against Chief Moshood Abiola and Alhaji Babagana Kingibe. He was asked to step down. Humbly, he complied. He was supposed to be vice presidential candidate to Chief Abiola. He didn't get it. He didn't complain. 6 years later, the same man became a governor in his state, and he was asked to pull out and become vice president. That shows that he's a child of destiny. He has paid his dues. If you look at the history of the world, the current president of Zambia tried it 7 times before he made it. President John Kufuor in Ghana did it 3 times. President Atta Mills in Ghana did it 3 times. Current President Nana Akufo-Addo did it 3 times. Buhari did it 4 times. Atiku has matured into the race. There is nobody. It's like you are bringing somebody in primary 1 to come and contest against somebody in A level. There is no basis for it. So let's give honor to whom it is due. 30 years after June 12, we are going to have a man who made huge sacrifice. He will be on the ballot paper, and Nigerians will compensate him, and we will have an opportunity to have a completely cosmopolitan, detribalized Nigerian as president and commander-in-chief.
Well, thank you very much. I want to say that when you begin to reel out the profile of Asiwaju Ahmed Tinubu, first, he's coming in to be president. Have been watching from the side. He's always been in this political game over the years. Not only was he a senator, he was the arrowhead of NADECO that allowed, even made possible, our ability to win power, democracy from the military. And of course, his activities post-June 12 that you referred to, which is about 30 years, is there in the public domain for everybody to know. Now, when he came in and he became governor of Lagos State, he had a blueprint. And that blueprint was like a development plan, which subsequent governors have built upon. What we are looking for is a government that can give us a 25, 50 years development plan to say, okay, this is where we are. Where do we want to be in another 10, 20, 50 years?
Did you suggest part of that plan to this current government?
To this current government? First of all, look at it this way. I wouldn't know his discussion with the president. But when you have people around the president, they are the ones to execute most of whatever dream the president has. And you would give it to him that surrounding himself with very brilliant fellows, regardless of religion or where you come from. When you look at Lagos State, the first state, you have an Igbo commissioner, you have people from Ekiti, you have from Ogun, serving as commissioners in his cabinet. So he has put that in practice. So we can trust that it's not about where you come from, okay, but it's about the capacity you have.
Part of the question that came through from my colleagues is that, you know, both parties, from the way both of you have put up your messages, it just come across as though, in spite of how lots of people or young people feel they've had enough of both political parties, that you both are still confident that it is still one of those parties that will win the elections, that notwithstanding, because you're talking about traditional votes. Because now people are saying, look, we're not happy with what we've seen before with PDP, not what we've seen with APC.
You know, I gave an example before. It's not even about when the youth, yes, they are agitating based on what they have seen and what they know. Now, we have been in politics. I took my own time before I joined politics.
That's why they want new people. They don't want those who have been there before, some of them suggest.
Now, but how do you now put new people without any experience? How would they run the government? So when you say they want new people, that is why you cannot...
New mindset, probably.
No, you cannot give it to America. That they have been practicing this democracy for many years. And you have a lot of youths there as well. But their president is...
but the system clearly is different from here. The system works...
It's very different. That is why we need somebody who is that exposed. Not only is Asiwaju American trained, not only is he a chartered accountant, he was auditor of Mobile, he worked for Deloitte and Touche, he worked for Anderson.
I don't know about being chartered.
Well, CPA. Of course, that's what you have in the US. So when you look at being chartered in Nigeria, I'm not even discussing, he came in as auditor for Mobile International, Mobile producer in Nigeria. No, he has had that corporate experience. What the youth are looking for is a different method of governance. So
I wanted to respond to something.
Yes.
Senator Arishe, you said Asiwaju has been watching from the sidelines. The job of the commander-in-chief is not that of a watchman. It's that of a player. Atiku Abubakar has been a player at the highest level of government. The vice president of Nigeria is saddled with taking care of the economy and the well-being of the country. So when you compare in terms of credentials, you will know that once upon a time, both of them worked together.
You know, without much argument, I was in charge of privatization when I came to the Senate.
Yes.
And Vice President Atiku was the arrowhead of that privatization. Now, as good as privatization was desirable, the process and the people that got those items, were they able to add value, you know, to this economy at that time? But I'm not even here to criticize.
Well, gentlemen, we're out of time,
candidates.
really. But if you can just say a few seconds, were they able? He asked if they were able.
In fact, if you read El Rufai's book,
Yes.
so the same way you are talking about privatization, it will tell you that the man was open, was transparent, and he never interfered in the affairs
we have
of privatization.
We have to thank both of you for coming on. Chief Dele Momo is the Director of Strategic Communication for the PDP. He's recently been appointed. And then Senator Ayarishe is a member of the APC and former Chairman Senate Committee, as you heard him say there, on privatization. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on today.
It's really my pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Can we... Okay, I think I hear we're completely out of time, but we thank all of you who've sent your messages again today. We will see you next time. I think it's a public holiday today, isn't it?
It is a public holiday, so happy Eid al-Maulud to you and yours. Do enjoy your day.
Yeah, so we'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain Usal.
Indeed.
Yusuf.
Indeed. Thank you for watching today. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
It's a public holiday. Take some rest if you can and enjoy the most of it. I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day.